So now let's talk about the layouts. And layouts are important. When you first start in Cinema 4D, you don't really know what you like or what you want, but as you start working, you'll find yourself using certain panels or certain areas of the interface more than others. And to help you along with how to strategize that or make it work for you better, Cinema 4D comes with some standard layouts. Like we're using the startup layout, but there's also an animation layout, so they try to give you some other options or to help you animating. There's a modeling one. So these are just recommendations. Here's the sculpting one. We have the body paint 3D painting one. But you can work any way you like, and kind of the best thing is that you can move all these windows around, and here's what you need to know just to make your own interface. Anytime you see these little groups of buttons here, you can go if you want to undock, and you can take this off. And then you just grab this button, and then when you see these lines like that, you can drop it anywhere else that you want. So if I don't want this at all, I can just close this and get it out of there. And you can drop these windows, undock them, any of them, and put them anywhere you want. So you can rearrange the workspace. You can click on them and say convert to tab. So now it makes this tab. And you can change the type of the tab if you want to. You can make it a top tab, or a left tab, or a right tab. And see, in the built-in interface, they already have a couple of these where they're hiding this content browser and this structure menu in these tabs. So that's how tabs work. So you could take off the attribute editor and then drop it on this tab. And then now we have it as a tab of the material manager, which I don't know why you would want that up there, but that's how these things work. You can just drop them wherever you want. And whenever you open a menu, if you see these double lines, that means you can tear it off, and then now you can drag this over here or wherever you want and resize it. So once you start working in Cinema 4D a bunch, if you find yourself like opening menus, like let's say these brushes, but you don't want to open this, you don't want to switch to the sculpting layout, then you can just grab these and let's drop them down there, and then change orientation to make it go this way, and then we can pull this down. So just screw around with these layouts, and then when you have one that you like, you just go to Window, Customization, Save Layout As, and call it My Test Layout. And then when you go back up here, you'll find your layout. So anytime in the program, you can switch back to it and get back to the workspace that you like. So let's go ahead and go back to the standard layout. And it works the same with all of these buttons here. So let me show you how to do that. This might be a little too advanced. You don't really have to worry about doing this now. I just want to show you how to do it. So you would go up to Window, Customization, Customize Commands. So this brings up a list of all the different commands and buttons and stuff you can do. So let's say you wanted the brush tool. So brush for painting textures, brush. Okay, so this is the brush for modeling. So let's say I wanted to put this brush up here. So then what we would do is go to customization, and then so what we would do is go up to Window, Customization, and then we want to customize palettes. So I don't know if you can see it, but you see how there's these little blue boxes around these? So that means we can drop stuff in there. So now I can grab this brush and drop that brush up there, or find any other command that you want. Like let's just look for sure, add absolute animation layer. I don't know what that does, but we can drag that up there, and then we can, now we have that function up there if we need it to call it. And in order to save that, you would, once you made those changes and added these things, you would want to go back to Window and save your layout again, and then it would save those new palettes, little things there with your layout. So try dragging these things around, dropping them. If there's things you find yourself becoming experienced, you never use them, you can delete them, you can move them around, reshuffle them. So Cinema 4D is made, I think, with a modular interface in mind. So if you only have one monitor, which most of you will have with a laptop or something, you can switch between different modes. But I have 3 monitors here, but I still have a couple different modes. I have a mode that I animate in, then I have a mode when I'm rendering. So it's all up to you what you want to do and how you want to move stuff around. Let's dig into some of these tabs here that are hidden behind our... So let's look at some of the other tabs here in our interface. One that can be helpful to organize stuff. I didn't use this one early on, but as I started making more complex stuff, I really started using the layer manager. So if you click here behind the attributes editor, you have the layer manager. And the way you usually use this is, let's say we had our this cube is like the object that we're going to be working with, animating, and these spheres, which I'm duplicating by control dragging, are like our background objects that we don't really want to touch. And let's say we wanted to switch them on and off, so we wanted to switch off all these spheres and switch off our foreground cube without having to use these buttons or group them all together or parent them. So that's something you can use layers for. So the way you use layers is that you would right click inside this layer window and say new layer, and let's double click it and call this our foreground. I'll just call it foreground. Gives it a yellow color, and then we can right click and call this our background. So I know all these spheres are in my background, so I can just select them by shift clicking them all and then dragging them and dropping them in our background. And now you see it gives us this color. This is our layer color, so it's telling us what layer it's on, which we can see it's the same color. Then our cube, we want to put it in the foreground. And to kind of better understand this, to kind of see how it works better, we should do more than one object. So let's take this oil tank and put it in our foreground too. So now these are separate objects, they're not parented or whatever, but now you can control their visibility or a number of other things all together with layers. So if we go to our foreground, this is the solo button. So if we click this, it'll solo here in the viewport and in the object manager, so you only see the objects that you want to work with. This is your visibility, visible in editor. So it's like this dot up here that you learned before, and this is visibility in the render. So if you turn this off, it won't render them. This is whether it'll show up in the object manager or not. This is whether it'll show up in the object manager or not, so you can turn this off and then they disappear from here. This is to lock them, so you can't do anything to them. See, they kind of get grayed out here. This is to turn animation on and off. This is to turn generators on and off. So these primitives or parametric objects, they're classified as generators. This is to turn deformers on and off. And this is to turn expressions on and off. I haven't gone into expressions yet, but I just want to show you that you can have a lot of control over these layers. So if you want to solo your background, you can do that and do the same thing to it. You can make it invisible, you can drop it out here. So layers, you don't have to use them to do simple scenes, but as you get mixed up in like more and more complicated stuff, they really become helpful. And one of the ways I use them in my films is that I'll put my characters, or the things I'm animating, in the foreground. Like I would put the characters, and maybe let's go to environment and make a floor. So if these characters need to walk around on this floor, you know, I only need to see the characters on the floor. So I'd put those in the foreground and then solo this. So I only see the things that I want to work with, and it also will speed up the interaction. It will also speed up your viewport. It will also speed up your viewport, so your animations will run faster because it's not processing that stuff in the background. So that's kind of a good way you can use these layers. That's the way I use them. And when I started out, I would make a layer for everything, like houses, roads, trees, but then I found it just works better. It's simpler if you just have two. One that you can solo and one that you turn off. So that's the way to use layers. If you want to change the colors, you can double click in here and change the colors. One other thing to note about layers, let's click on this cube and add a keyframe. Oh, I thought it colored it. No. So we can go here and change the color of the layer. Let's go ahead and make this a red to whatever you want. Make this one a normal green. You can change the colors. You can rename them. You can move them around. You can do whatever you want. So layers are a really good way of organizing the stuff you're working with in 3D. When you start working with more complicated things, don't worry about these at the beginning. I just want to show this to you. I think the biggest problem or the biggest issue I had when I was learning Cinema 4D and learning 3D is that I felt lost all the time. Like I didn't really know what I was doing or why things were happening. So I'm trying to break it down like this and show you the connections between things, so you can just figure out why things are happening. And because when you feel lost, it's just kind of this powerless feeling. And I used to work, so things would happen that I didn't want, and I didn't know how to change it back. And you know, I try to undo it, and if it didn't work, then I just have to open a new project and start again. So I'm starting really slow just to show you these things so you can see the connections, so you don't get lost inside of this 3D space. And one of the things that's really helpful that I didn't learn till maybe 2 years into I was learning Cinema 4D, but Cinema 4D has an awesome built-in help system. And the way you use it, if you want to use it like a standard help, like a glossary, you just go here to help and show help, and then anything you search for, it will show up over here, and then you can read about it, whatever it is, which is pretty good. But kind of an even more helpful way to use it is, this is a thing I didn't learn until later on that I wish I would have learned, is that you can right-click any object, and then if you go to the bottom and go to show help, it'll actually bring up the help for that object that you clicked on, which is pretty awesome, learning what all these different things are. And even better than that, you can click on pretty much any menu or coordinate and right click on that and go show help, and it'll actually take you to that entry and tell you what that exact thing is. So if you just wanted to go through, which you can, and just click on some of these objects, like this array thing. Okay, what's an array? And the array object, blah, blah, blah. It tells you what it is. Okay, well, what does this thing do? I mean, if you don't want to, you know, just start experimenting, show help. What do the copies do? It tells you what it does. So you can really just go through Cinema 4D and just try making some of these different things. You know, what's a guide? Like, I don't know. Okay, here's a guide. Tells you what it does. And you can just go through here, try creating things, click on their help, try screwing around with them with the basic tools you know how to do now, and look in the attribute editor and look for if they have any little special functions. Try messing with those and just try to wrap your head around all these different objects. So just try that. Go in here. You're going to figure out how to do some stuff you're not going to know how to do. But it's just a really good way to learn, to go through the help and find it that way.